I think we're ready. And welcome to people. Yeah, yay! Woo! Welcome to people on Zoom. Zooming in here. I see at least 6 people. I get some hand waves. I pass them on to you. There's a bunch of people here. I say again to the people of Zoom, you have not heard me say that unfortunate news earlier. Our poetic opener, Michael Boissevin, unfortunately could not make it today because of a sore throat. That is very sad. We wish him all the best. But we do have our featured reader, Terry-Ann Carter, who after a little introduction, I will ask to take over here and amaze us with her poetry. Before that, because we have so much time, you know what? I've always dreamed of being a stand-up comedian. This is my one and only chance, right? So I'll tell you the one joke that I've come up with. I'll tell you the one joke that I've come up with this year. It goes like this. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and her best friend is the 6-year-old girl from across the street. And the other day they were at home, at our home, playing, and they have their little tent and they want to decorate things. And then I hear them say, we want to make a dungeon party. Yeah, let's have a dungeon party. And then they come to their mom, Mom, we want to make a dungeon party. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah, what do? Yeah, we need some decorations. And my wife asked me, what kind of decorations do you get for a dungeon party? And I said, well, you're asking the wrong person. I've never been to a party. Hey, see, it works. Okay, anyway, thanks for enduring that. Let's now get down to business. So our featured reader tonight is Terry-Ann Carter, who is eagerly waiting to take the stage here. Terry-Ann is a poet and paper artist and the author of eight collections of long-form poetry, 2 haiku guidebooks, and 5 haiku chapbooks. She has edited 4 haiku anthologies. That was 254. That's not quite a haiku, right? But well, I get it. As past president of Haiku Canada, she has given haiku and book arts workshops around the world. Today, she's bringing to us that book, First I Fold the Mountain, that she's selling tonight for $20. I recommend you get yourself a copy. It is a love letter to books, handmade books, books from childhood. Do I pronounce this correct? Dos a dos? Dos a dos book containing poems from a husband and wife. The hanging books in honor of German dada writer and artist Kurt Schwitters. Unwritten books inspired by the Library of Babel by Jorge Luis Borges, who Terry-Ann and I have chatted about, a great writer, you all know him, of course. And a scroll book composed in the voice of tanka poet Onono Kamachi, yes, from the Japanese Heian Court. Okay, Terry-Ann, please amaze us.
Thank you, Thorsten. Thank you, all of you who are here. It's lovely to see everyone. This is a first live reading for me, I think in about 3 years. So it's so wonderful to connect through this wonderful form of poetry that we all love. I want to thank Marty Gervais and Black Moss Press for my beautiful First I Fold the Mountain, which was launched just this April in Windsor. So a huge thank you to Black Moss Press. This book is inspired by a haiku. Bookmaker. First I fold the mountain, then the valley. The poems in this collection are about handmade books because I am a book artist. And I'm going to start with that section first. Tearing down the papers is an expression that book artists use. It means to share and tear large sections of paper for the interior of books. This is called tearing down the papers just before summer. Pulling from my fingertips so as not to rouse the kitten, this late night meditation on bookmaking, on thoughts of wizardry. I'm a paper queen wearing stars in my hair, balancing wings toward the thoughts of magnolia, the breath we left beside us on the roller coaster before it began its descent. The country roads of a motorcycle ride, after hours missed in the marina, finding our way through it. In the studio, Chopin nocturnes, pale lilies in a pale vase, the moon with a face only a mother could love, pages splintering into dark. Tearing down the American papers after Walt Whitman, I sing the fingers electric, thumb in the power position. I wake knowing my book will be part of my body, part of my memory, part of my deep longing for the USA to be free of guns, free of circuses, animals needing their own wilderness. Tearing down the ghost papers found in the bottom bureau drawer after Emily Dickinson. Have no fear, that chariot death will not stop for me when the last page is torn, when the last star has come in. Paper tear ring after E. Cummings with the final line by Carl Sandburg. Up, down, anyhow town. She bends her back, he pulls the plug. Moon, stars, wind, rain. Anyone knows what sorrow knows. He tips his no, she sleeps till yes. Paper, scissors, ink pad, paste. The fog gets through on little cat feet. Grimoire. Women carried them in apron pockets, small enough to curve fingers around. A text in code. Some say the grimoire was for black arts, magic with a K. Such a small book for casting spells, spellbound, under a spell, a book to enchant, charm, a Circes of a book falling open in my palms, falling open to night rain, the memory of dark. This winter, the Christmas roses are blooming for the first time in my front garden, blooming with their slight flush of pink. I open my arms to them. The cool sea wind blows up from the harbor, and I bury my face in the spell of their planting, which I did with you last summer, your fingers frail beneath the rotting leaves. How we enjoy the day, the dark falling on our shoulders like rain, clouds breaking open like seawater. Rock hunting with Basho on Dallas Road. We start at mile 0, a good place to begin. Park the car and walk down the few steps to water's edge. I'm worried about his sandals and thatched hat. Perhaps the mendicant monk needs galoshes and earmuffs, bright colored mitts. There will be tales from his island and a begging bowl. I tell him not to worry, we've got Barb's Fish and Chips, the Empress Hotel. In Beacon Hill Park, Basho points to leaf scatter, the lone crow on a bare branch. Soon we are gazing at the horizon, waiting for a haiku to come from somewhere, anywhere. I watch the master throw his gaze to the mountains across the strait. Is he longing for sacred Fuji? Is he homesick? I decide on some beach yoga to calm ourselves, begin to think of a book I might make to capture this auspicious occasion. We stretch our legs into the sand, raise arms up over our head. Look, he says, the white underbellies of gulls, the world around us, one color. The great teacher looks down, finds a peach pit embedded in driftwood, a constellation imprinted there. Yes, he winks, I love to write about rocks. He faces the darkening sky. Loneliness, he says, with a changed expression. When the cicadas cry, pierces stone. Wax on, wax off, I think. And it's time to warm up. Stop for green tea. Silk Roads is right up the road. An imaginary tunnel book unfolds in front of me. Sky to driftwood to cicada to peach pit. Origami, ragtime, razzmatazz. I'm so happy that Shirley Johnson is here this evening because this poem is for her. The best way to beat those West Coast January blues, get the bins, get the paints and inks, get the origami folds for a down-home pop-up book. Clear the kitchen table, stock up the glue, start those mountain valley creases. You know what to do. Sharpen the scissors. Don't count your losses. Don't complicate the rain. Just use those thumbnails like a bone folder. Ease on up. Cut, cut. A button for the cover. Maybe a new lover. Needles and threads. Corrugated cardboard. Knock those knees, baby. 1, 2, 3. The second section of First I Fold a Mountain are the unwritten books. The poems in this section are from books that have yet to be written, inspired by Jorge Luis Borges' notion of the unwritten book. In turn, inspired by his short story, The Library of Babel. If you haven't read The Library of Babel, it will tear the top of your head off. It's so awesome. So I'm going to read a few poems from the unwritten books. Letters of War from the Book of Italy. My father must have spotted them in a small Sicilian town that summer of war on his march to North Africa. Such a knock in his blood, noticing the wooden horses from across the road in a bombed-out storefront, sagging in heat. How carefully he wrapped them in Italian newspapers. Perhaps the rain would come. My father carried the wooden horses across the channel from Messina to Tunisia, thoughts of my mother catching in waves. Carved horses staring into the world with the sadness of war, like letters from the dead, wizened and torn, the darkened eyes turned away from the sun. The stories of boys who carved horses in war, for vino, for pasta, who carved the names of dead mothers, Maria, Lucia, into the manes of horses, embroidered with stars and red wool, wood from an orange tree, a grove overlooking the sea. 3 years before I was born, my father caressed the faces of horses on a ferry boat crossing the Mediterranean. Silently, he sang in the fearful night to the women whose names were cut into wood, the names of women he would never love. 2. The young carver searches for stone in the quarry. He is drawn to a piece of rough marble, the birds high above him. The hand of the carver remembers seraph and sans seraph, the way bees carry the memory of honey. Dreaming Garamond, Vadoni, he traces a template of design on paper. Paper he holds to the sun. The rounded O, like the plums on his mother's table. The breast of the girl he loves. Waterfall slide the powerful W, the way a shovel lifts dirt for the grave. And the loneliness of L, waiting in the piazza to pray for the souls of the dead. Light tendrils into night, the birds make their way to trees. In the morning, he will take his letters to the village square, sell them to soldiers for bread. 3. After my mother died, I found my father's letters from Sicily and Rome, wrapped in black lace in a shoebox. He did not write of the Northern Campaign, the Allied bombing of Palermo. He omitted the facts of Ortona, Monte Cassino. Instead, he described the bridge where Dante glimpsed Beatrice, the bakery that sold biscotti, a soft white turroni made without sugar, the breads with rosemary, oregano, potato. He wrote of doorways to churches, their stained windows of light, the way he paused one afternoon to speak to a shop girl, fumbling for the exact coins he might need to purchase black lace. Perhaps she smiled. Perhaps the sun was shining. He always signed, Te amo. From the Book of Perhaps. What if this were paradise and I didn't even know it? A friend across the table, a glass of red wine, the sun setting behind his shoulder, a light so golden the French piano music melts into air. Debussy, Fauré, Ravel. Arc of red pepper curls on the cutting board. Pita bread, warm from the oven. In an earthquake, he says, he will ride his bike to find me. In honor of my visit to Paris, from the Brazier book. In honor of my visit to Paris, I've decided to name my breasts Gertrude, the larger one, and Alice, the smaller, on the occasion of a literary tour, which of course will include their Luxembourg Gardens pied-à-terre. In the evening, when I am bathing, I look down at Miss Toklas, Miss Stein, whisper, we're going to France. And the larger one dreams of salons, plum brandy, and writers. The smaller one imagines hash brownies. Maybe some of you know Alice B. Toklas' famous book on hash brownies. Yeah, she was they were quite a pair. The third section of the book is a dos-et-dos book, which is French for back to back. It binds two books together with one binding. Although simple in structure, the binding allows the book to be divided into two distinct sections. Often they were love letters written between lovers. And one time when I was at a Patrick Lane writing retreat, The exercise was to write in a different voice, not your own. Maybe a different gender, different age, different background. Just try putting yourself. And so I began to think about writing in the voice of a husband. And then I began thinking about writing in the voice of a wife. And eventually, the poems resembled my own life. This is a poem from the husband called How You Call It. Memory persistent as a tick burrows beneath skin, or what I know of the salamander, mythic creature surviving fire. Don't call it my choice. Some things cannot be crushed. Tragicos, meaning tragic, and goat. Life's a perspective, depending on which side of the fence you sit on. Shit happens, my neighbor says, when the fence post cracks, rendering 3 weeks of labor useless. Yeah, shit happens. My goddamn Jay's losing again. Shitter and shitty. Those Greeks have a name for everything. That's about the only amusing poem in that section, and I don't read them publicly, but they're there for private reading. The next section are from the hanging books that I designed in honor of the German Dada poet, Kurt Schwitters. I love the way you pronounced his name. Of course, you do it so well. How do you say it?
Kurt Schwitters.
But it's the
Yeah.
Schwitters. Schwitters. Okay. He was an amazing artist. And so these were long hanging books. And this section is the hanging books for Kurt Schwitters. And they're hard to read because they're written in a kind of Dada-esque way of splotching the words over the page. But I'm going to try. Book 1. From the chaos and tragedy of life springs art. Kurt Schwitters. Trash from city streets, discarded papers, candy wrappers. Your Mertzbau, 6 rooms of the family house, ceilings and walls covered with draw ink. Sculptures, assemblage, string, Merz, a name derived from a scrap of paper you glanced on the table, small grottos for your beloveds. Gold, Goethe. And I'd like to close with 3 tanka from the scroll book, the Onono Kamachi poems. Onono Kamachi was probably the most famous waka or tanka poet in Japan. She lived in the early 9th century and was a part of the Heian Court. She's very revered in Japan. And so what I wanted to try and do was I read her poems in translation, is to assume that I can step into her voice and write in this form, the tanka. I have a little bit of background with haiku and Japanese art forms, so I felt I could at least try, but it's very difficult to make these assumptions, and I'm hoping wherever she is, she'll forgive me. Blue Moon, the Onono Kamachi poems. Cicadas sing in the twilight of my mountain village. Who will visit and ease this loneliness? Night deepens, and the sound of owls and a calling deer. I am aware of this unrequited love. From my doorway, I see the seaweed gatherer. Doesn't he know there is a harvest here in my arms. The scent of plum blossoms wakes me from the dream of one who comes to me at night. And to close, perhaps my ending will be in the sea green mist rising over Tokiwa Mountains, my love, like the crane, unbending into air. Thank you very much.